Welcome into Courtside Seats with Kroeger, a Charlotte Hornets podcast. Here he is, Chris Kroeger.
Buzz Peterson from Asheville, North Carolina. What was life like growing up in Asheville, North Carolina? Even as a little kid, 5, 6, 7 years old, what was life like?
I was born in Asheville. My family's in retail business, Sky City Stores, which has been gone for years, but it was like a Walmart. My grandfather started. My dad took over, so I was the last Peterson left to run it. My uncle had passed away at an early age, so I kept telling my granddad, I said, I can't do this. I mean, when I got out of Carolina, they had a place for me to work in the stores and to work in the office. And I told my granddad, I said, I want to coach. I want to coach. I want to do something with basketball because that's what I've been in my whole entire life. And they kept saving a spot for me. But I just wouldn't buy into it. So I was raised in Hickory for my first 10 years of my life.
Okay.
Doing all the little things, baseball, football, basketball at an early age. And then going through high school, junior high at Asheville High, it was one of those things you play everything. You liked all sports. And it got to be my sophomore year. I said, okay, I've got to choose one where I can go get a scholarship. I would tell you my love was football. I loved it. But I was 6'2", 6'3", a sophomore, and I probably weighed 160 pounds. And so
you look like me. You're a little taller, but you look like me. That's what you're telling me.
But I said, I guess I'm built more for a basketball player. And that was my sophomore year. I played baseball one more year, and then I just focused on basketball. And my goal was to be a McDonald's All-American. That's just something a lot of kids have. And
you accomplished that.
I was so keen on being that, and by working as hard as I could, just over and over doing drills that I was taught by guys that are playing that my high school coach Rodney Johnson was real involved, and I just wanted to make sure that I could get the McDonald's All-American, and I didn't know other things that come with it, Player of the Year, getting scholarships here and there, but it was a dream of mine to do that.
Were you an only child?
No, I have a sister that's 6.5 years older.
Okay.
Who lives in Asheville.
Yeah.
She has 3 children, so I have a nephew and two little nieces. One niece is assistant AD at University of Tennessee, and the other 2 are at home there. So yeah, it's a pretty close family.
Was she athletic growing up?
No, she wasn't. Actually, my dad is not a huge sports fan. He didn't play much. My mom did, but my dad is. And I'll never forget when I took the App State job, and I was July of '87. And
this is as an assistant you're talking about. It's your first coaching job.
It's the first one. I mean, I'd been overseas playing. I'd helped Bob Gibbons out. I was working at Sky City. Tom Apke offers me a job as a part-time assistant. And you're making $533 a month, and your rent is $500. And I remember driving up in a car, and I'm with my dad, and he tells me, he says, listen, I will let you do this. This is a great opportunity for you, but after 3 years, you gotta go get a real job. And I'm thinking, I said, Dad, this is a real job. This is coaching. He says, how can you say that when your life depends on an 18-year-old's decision making? Mm-hmm. Well, you're 24 years old, and you think, I don't want to hear that, whatever. But I had a goal. I want to be a head coach at 32. That's what I wanted to do. And so, but yeah, I mean, if it weren't for my father and my mother helping me out financially, I couldn't. Living off of $33 a month is not going to get it.
Was your mom more supportive of you?
Of course, moms are. I'm the baby, and of course, she's honey, do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Live your life and your dream, chase your dream. And I couldn't find anything in Boone. There was nothing there.
You're talking about on the side to supplement what you were.
Yes, yeah. I couldn't find anywhere to live in Boone when I went up there, and I had this is August, so I found a place behind an ABC store in Blowing Rock. To live, and I rented that out, and and then the next year I moved into Boone, rent got a lot lower, and got a little pay increase, and when I got my first job. I was there for 2 years, and I was getting this. All right, I got one more year, and this may be it. I'm going to. What am I going to do? And Coach Smith hired Dave Hanners at East Tennessee State. Les Robinson asked Coach Smith who should he hire to replace Dave, and he said Buzz Peterson. And so I was able to get that job over there. Thank goodness that Dave got the job at Chapel Hill, and I could replace him at East Tennessee. And Dave did a heck of a job recruiting, and I just helped us go to NCAA tournament.
You need those breaks. That's what everybody gets, those breaks.
Yeah,
in life.
you needed breaks, and I was able to go from East Tennessee State for 1 year to NC State for 3.
So you coming out of Asheville, what position did you play in high school?
I was a guard.
Yeah.
I was a guard. We had a pretty good high school team. The guys in my class, I don't know if anybody else went Division I, but below me there was about 3 or 4 guys that went. So we had size. Hickory was our real rival with the Young brothers and Chris Washburn. So they were pretty good. Ashbrook had James Worthy.
I've heard of him.
And then Hunter Huss had Sleepy Floyd. So it was a very competitive league. It was probably one of the better ones in the state. And then, at the time, I was, as I got to be a senior, I visited a lot of places in the fall of my senior year and trying to figure out where to go. I think I took 5 visits. And
do you remember those schools?
I remember. I went to Tennessee. I went to Kentucky. My dad went to Tennessee. So Tennessee, Kentucky. I visited Clemson because it's an hour away. North Carolina. And, I'm trying to think. Duke. Duke's the other school. I visited 6, actually. I went to Maryland also. Let me take it back. I did not go to Maryland. I was going to because Lefty. This is good. This is pretty good right here. Lefty offered Michael Jordan, Jeff Atkins, and myself a scholarship, and he said the first one that takes it gets it. So Jeff took the scholarship.
Wow.
From Martinsville, Virginia, and so
Lefty doesn't play.
He doesn't. So Jeff took that. But those are 5 schools actually. End up visiting, and then I went on a visit Kentucky, and I came back. I said, that's where I'm going. I really enjoyed the visit Kentucky.
Who was the coach? Eddie Sutton?
Joe B. Hall.
Oh, Joe B. Hall.
Joe B. Hall's assistants were Joe Dean Jr., Leonard Hamilton, and so those guys had done a lot of recruiting, and so that's where I was going. Well, I come to high school. I told my high school teammate going in, I said, I'm keeping this pretty quiet, but I'm going to go to Kentucky. He said, you can't. Coach Johnson, your high school, he's going to go crazy. You know how people love North Carolina. I said, no, but if you've ever been to Kentucky, you know why.
What got you, Rupp?
Wildcat Lodge.
Yeah.
Rupp, and the tradition was unbelievable. So I go in the school. I sit down in the homeroom. And lo and behold, here came my high school coach, looked at me, didn't say a word, just pointed his fingers, you could come here. And for the next 2.5, 3 hours, I was in his office with him and some of his staff members telling me that I didn't need to commit that early. There was plenty of time. There was only one signing period back then. That was in the springtime. And so the next day, Coach Smith was at practice, and we visited. So I kind of opened it back up a little bit, and then so. What
happened there? Did your coach call Coach Smith?
Yeah, I think he called. He got a call that night from him. We talked. He showed up the next day. Then I got a call from Michael also, and Michael says, "Hey, I thought we were going to go to school together." That was kind of something we'd always said we'd go, same school and play with each other there, and have careers in college, and. He says, "Hey, I thought you got to stick to our word," and so I said, "Let me think about it." So I opened it back up a little bit, but through that whole period, I remember it was like 18, 20 games. Joe B. Hall was at about every game. 95% of those games he was at. So, but I ended up going to North Carolina. And if I had to do it again, I'd do it all over, go to Chapel Hill again.
Do you remember what Dean said to you? Did he ever come to your house with your parents?
Yes. And that was only one time. That was the only time my mom cooked a meal when coaches came. She was a big Carolina fan and everything, so she cooked a meal for Coach Smith. And then when Coach Fogler and Coach Guthridge came up, she had a meal there. And Coach Williams was from Asheville, and he was that spot at that time that could not go on the road and recruit, but we knew Coach Williams very well from being in that area. So anyway, that's and then in January I committed to North Carolina, then signed in March. Michael and I both signed in March at the McDonald's All-American game out in Wichita, Kansas. We signed in the Holiday Inn. I remember same room in the Holiday Inn out in Wichita.
Back then you didn't have TV cameras and hats everywhere.
Didn't have
right?
TV cameras, all that stuff.
Which hat are you going to put on? None of that.
And I didn't realize he was going to turn out to be what he was at that time.
You know what? Mitch told the story. He remembers. So Mitch was the first class after the freshman eligibility rule who you could play as a freshman, right? So back then, Carolina's still one of the few programs that's got a JV basketball program, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah. And so he remembered, he said Digger Phelps was recruiting him. So it was either Digger going to Notre Dame or go to Carolina, play for Dean. And he said Digger came and said, you could play right away as a freshman. You can come here, you can play right away. Yeah. And Mitch liked the sound of that. But then Dean comes in, and Dean said, well, I'm not going to promise you that. And he said he told his parents, you're going to go to class, you're going to go to study hall, you're going to go to church once a week, and you're going to work really hard, but I'm not going to promise you that you're going to play as a freshman. And Mitch said he really liked that because it told him that if you're promising me this, it's probably what you're promising every other kid. Right. And meanwhile, for Digger, if you're promising me I'm going to play, you're probably telling every other kid that too, and there aren't enough spots to go around. And that was enough to sell Mitch to go to Carolina.
Yeah, that's the one thing when Coach Smith comes in your house, he tells you that you feel the honesty. The other guy that I felt very comfortable with, and he was honest, was Krzyzewski. But the problem was he's just coming from Army. Yeah, I didn't know what he was going to do at Duke. And so there was a question mark. I feel comfortable with him also. And I can see why Krzyzewski's successful. I can see why Coach Smith was successful, just sitting down in those home visits and everything.
It's transparency, though. You need that.
Yeah. And, man, you feel honesty. You feel like you hear the coach is going to shoot you this, going to tell like Digger told Mitch, all this stuff. And yeah, you get some promises made. But you're smart enough, your family's smart enough to know that if they're promising you, they're probably doing the same thing to others. So somebody's going to get their feelings hurt.
So Parade All-American, AP Player of the Year. You're the AP Athlete of the Year too, I think.
Yeah, I don't know how that came about. Yeah, that was
pretty good.
Golden Plate Award. Yeah, so I always brag on Michael when I go to Chicago. He'd say, "Here's my roommate, who's Player of the Year in North Carolina," and people just look at me like they never heard of him. And they just turn their head.
Guy?
Yeah, who's this guy? And Michael would say, "Well, the reason Buzz won the Athlete and Player of the Year award was because his dad owned 6 to 7 major newspapers in North Carolina." And those guys were laughing. They even thought that was true. I just played along with it. I said, "Yeah, newspaper business has been very good to us."
Did you guys ever play Laney in high school?
No, it was interesting. Laney was other end of state, and of course Asheville other end, and I believe Michael and them were upset first round.
Is that right?
And my group, we made it a little ways, and we ended up losing to Chapel Hill High School, who won it all. Had some very good players on their team back then. And so, we never faced each other. When I was at Chapel Hill at camp, the first time I met him, he was a suite mate with his high school teammate Leroy Smith and my high school teammate Randy Shepard. We were in a room together, but Randy and Michael played in the gym together all week. Leroy and I played in the gym all together. I would ask Randy, I said, "How's Michael? What kind of player?" He says, he's a 6'4" center. I mean, post guy. Nothing outside. You can throw alley-oops to him, which is fun on a break, but he's nothing on the perimeter at all. Which was the case, really, which was Michael's case at that time in high school. If he did play on the perimeter a little bit, he probably would have been all everything. But, in Wilmington, I can see sometimes you can get locked down there and a lot of people not know where you are and everything unless you get out on a national scene.
So he was just not asked to do that in high school, so he never got to showcase
Never really had to.
He
jumped so well and everything. He had some pretty good teammates around him also before that, but the team has always been like New Hanover. They were very good. But I remember you had to get 3 Division I college coaches recommend you to the BC camp. Bolton and Crow and our camp is in Millersville, Georgia. And my high school coach got me 3 of those from 3 coaches. Michael didn't get those. Think about it. If he'd have gotten those offers, probably would have been, everything. Still was, but, we'd have known about him a little bit quicker.
You think you still would have gone to Carolina?
I think so. I think so. I mean, when we got to Chapel Hill, he says, "Hey, I've heard about you." He said, "How'd you get to BC camp?" And I explained the same thing about those 3 letters. I said, "Why didn't you go?" He said, "I couldn't get them. And he said, "Where are you going from here?" I said, "I will go to 5-Star up in Pittsburgh." He said, "How'd you go there?" I said, "My high school coach got it for me." He says, "I like to go there." So, I bet one of the coaches can get you in that. And so Michael would play. And of course, he's one of the best players in camp. And then they got him invited to Garfinkel. Coach Williams called Howard Garfinkel and said, "Look, there's a jewel down here that you need to get up there." By the time Michael went up here for a week before I did, he couldn't get in the week I was in the last week. They were full. They put him in that second week, and when I got there he was standing. I said, I thought you were. He said, well, they told me I could stay for another week. I'm going to stay. He says, hey, I got like the MVP. I won the one-on-one, all this stuff. I said, oh, wow. And then when I got up there, everybody was talking about him.
Yeah.
And about 2 or 3 days later, here we are playing one-on-one against each other, like the camp, whatever. So, but of course, he won it. But this is interesting to walk through the whole situation, how he progressed.
So you stepped foot on campus in Chapel Hill. Well, give me your first moment where you thought to yourself, this is too good to be true. Whether it was just hanging out somewhere on campus or just you couldn't believe that students knew who you were. Like, how do you know who I am? I'm just freshman Buzz Peterson. What do you remember?
Tell you what, we went in a week before classes started, and we went through orientation. So after about 2 or 3 days, you're done. And I remember sitting there to Michael, and we were both homesick. And we were both like, well, we don't have anything to do. I'm sure the coach is going to get us to play pickup, weights, whatever. And I said, I may run home. I'm telling you what, we both got on buses and went home. And both of us homesick. We get home that night, and I guess his parents called my parents the next day. My brother-in-law took me back to took me back to Chapel Hill, and there we were sitting there again in that same room 24 hours later. Can you imagine if our parents just said, hey, y'all stay here. Everything's going to be fine. You're going to get a job here in town, go to a local college.
Get your rear end back to school.
And my mother looked at me. She opened that door up. Says, what are you doing? I said, I'm homesick. So she let me come in and fix me something to eat. And then she sat down with her and my dad. Said, look, you're going back tomorrow. Your brother-in-law's going to take you back. And we've talked to the Jordans, and Michael's going to be back there tomorrow also.
So when did you break the ice? When did you guys really settle in? Once classes started?
Once classes started next week, you kind of get into the groove. You start meeting people.
This isn't so bad.
No, it's not so bad. And you kind of, as you're going through it, and we, North Carolina does a very intense running program, conditioning, 4.5 miles, sprint work, and 4 times a week. Weights were not that big. Mm-hmm. Back then, the weights was basically optional, what you did, but the conditioning was number one. And that's why I always feel like at the end of a game, if it was anywhere close, we were going to win, because nobody was in better shape than we were. And, there was times you had to run a mile. You had a tough time in a practice time, and you had to get yourself in shape, or you're going to make those times. If you didn't, you're going to be punished for it. So, everybody knew the rule, because at that time, I remember my junior year there was 10 McDonald All-Americans on that team out of 14.
It's crazy.
So you may be playing more than a guy behind you, and the only reason because you're a year older or 2 years older in class, unless he was an exceptional athlete, exceptional player. So it was. There was, if you went out, there's not a drop down at all. There was so many good players on that team in '84. So it was get on campus that first time, that first year you win a national championship, and you smelled it and you tasted it, you wanted more. And we never got it, but we always had that taste for it. '84
was Phil's first year, Phil Ford?
No, 1984 would have been that was Kenny Smith.
Kenny's
That'd been Kenny, but Kenny got hurt. So you had Michael. You had All-American, the McDonald Americans, myself, Curtis Hunter, Joe Wolf, David Popson, Kenny Smith. I know I'm leaving out tons, but there was, it could go on. There was 10 I remember counting at that time. Sam Perkins, Matt Doherty, after I left those guys out, the class ahead of us.
So when you win your first championship as a freshman, were you naive enough at that time to think, oh, it's just always going to be this way?
Well, I immediately, after we won it, we're going to win again next year, because the only person we left was Jimmy Black. And you're not thinking that James Worthy's going to go pro at the time. You're just not thinking that, because it was kind of not a lot of people did it, and you're just thinking that academics are so important, so strong. Worthy's family was, education, all that stuff. So I felt like at that time, but we got a chance to win it again. And so James went, he was the number one pick, and so, but we had a good nucleus coming back and a good class coming in. And we lost to Georgia in a Final 8 up in Syracuse that year. Then the following year, we had a really good team. In '84, we stayed number one for 21 straight weeks. Lost to Arkansas and Pine Bluff on a back-to-back. We played in Greensboro, then flew out there and lost back to them, and then we got upset by Indiana in the NCAA tournament.
Sweet 16 that year? Is that right?
Yeah. It might have been. We always got that close.
Yeah, because I think you guys made 2 regional finals and then a Sweet 16.
I remember Coach Smith saying years later that '84 was probably the most talented team you had that didn't win it. And we had things going at that year.
Tournament was how big at that time?
48,
48, yeah.
48 teams.
And then your senior year is when it went to 64, is that right?
64, yeah. We lost to Villanova, who won it all in the final game down in Birmingham. And so you expect to be in the Final Four, but when you put on that North Carolina jersey, you're going to get the best from somebody, and you better be ready. And so we knew every night the expectations were very high.
Do you remember the things growing up, because this seems so crazy and foreign and hard to believe now, but at that time you guys get Dean that championship. I mean, Dean was getting hit with a lot of stuff. This guy can never win the big one, or he's
it's interesting,
always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Yeah, but it was in every team there's got to be a leader within that team. And so you take a team, they hear the coach's voice every night. They hear the assistant coach's voice every night. But when a teammate speaks to you, you don't want to let them down. You know there's going to be times in your career you're going to let the coach down, you're going to let your parents down. You know that's going to happen. But you don't want to let a teammate down. And our leader that year was Jimmy Black. And Jimmy was by far not the best player on the floor, but he was a tremendous leader. And I remember having these team meetings that we would have in a dorm, and Jimmy kept saying, guys, I'm sick and tired of hearing this about Coach Smith not winning it. We are going to win it for him. As much as that man has done for us, he's given us the opportunity to come here and play. What he does for us, we've got to win it for him. So when we're playing, you think of Coach Smith and his staff, Coach Guthridge, Coach Williams, Coach Fogler, what they do for us. Let's win it for them. And so the only thing we could think in our mind is, hey, we've won it for Coach Smith. We finally got the monkey off his back, and we were the group to do it. Now, that quickly turned in the locker room like, hey, I wish we were on Franklin Street.
Yeah.
I wish we were there to celebrate.
Oh, yeah.
And so the only thing we got were pictures and people talking about it, because you didn't have cell phones or taking pictures of it. It was just the pictures we got weeks later.
I bet you wish in that locker room. You guys won where? New Orleans, right?
New Orleans,
Superdome, right? Mm-hmm. I bet you wish you guys could have stayed in that locker room forever. Like just in that moment, if you could just keep that moment and stay in that forever.
It was exciting. But I'll never forget in Raleigh beating, it was either Alabama, it might have been Alabama, to go to the Sweet 16. We're all cutting the nets down and all this stuff. And it wasn't like senior, junior, sophomore, freshman, all that stuff, so everybody's going. So next thing I hear was, hey, Stick, that's what we call Worthy, say, Stick, it's your turn. Just low voice, I'm not cutting them down. That's what he'd say. So I'm waiting until we get to New Orleans. Everybody's like, oh, big game, Stick, yeah, all that stuff. But, when we went to New Orleans, back-to-back career highs for him. Because back then, James probably led us in scoring at 14 points a game. Mm-hmm. But everybody was bunched up at 12, 13, 14. Nobody averaged 20-something, whatever. But we went to New Orleans. He went back-to-back career highs. And sure enough, we cut him down there because he was determined to make sure we won.
That's pretty special.
Yeah.
What was your favorite thing about Dean? Whether as a coach or just as a human being, your favorite thing about him?
His voice, the way he talks sometimes. I mean, he when he'd get up, you knew when he was upset. Never cussed at you. Was very honest with you. But how Coach Smith and Coach Guthridge worked together, it was teamwork. It was, he trusted Coach Guthridge for different things, and then it was just, they worked so good together. But the honesty, when you're done, he would do anything in the world for you. It's just now, this is a young man who worked hard for him for 4 years. I've got to make sure I'm not done with him. Mm-hmm. I've got to go help him get a job. Even though I coached him for 4 years, he got his college degree. Now it's my turn to go to work for him. I've got to make sure he gets something he loves. And I told him, I said, Coach, I want to scout. I'm not going to make the NBA. I got drafted late by Cleveland, but I'm not going to make it. I got cut. They sent me to CBA, and I said, Coach, I want to scout. He said, well, Buzz, I can't. That's hard because in scouting the NBA, there's a lot of former coaches that are doing that, and so it's just hard to break in. But in the meantime, why don't you go help Bob Gibbons out, Lenore, North Carolina, and help him do high school? That will help you. Maybe then we can help you get a job. But that's when I ran into Ralph Peterson, and I was able to find a college situation, so I got into coaching that way.
Dean, he's your Ty, both probably as a example of what a coach is supposed to be, but also just steering you into that career path.
Yeah, I mean, because he's going to call you, come in his office and sit there and say, "Hey, let's meet. What are you thinking? What do you want to do?" And you've got your degree, and what's on your plate now? And you tell him what you want to do, and all of us did that. And some guys had, like Steve Hill, I want to be an orthopedic surgeon, or Cliff Morris, I want to be a lawyer, or whatever. Everybody had different things to do. And Timo Malkin, I want to be an accountant. But I wanted to scout, and so he helped me. I remember getting I was at App State. He helped me get that job, and I'm there 4 years. And Tulsa came open, and he says, "I hear you involved in that Tulsa job." I said, "Yeah." He said, "That's a tough job. That's the hardest job in the country. Self just won 30-some games, and you want to take that job over?" I said, "Coach, I love the challenge." I said, "I don't know what else I can do here at App State. I got into the NCAA tournament. It's hard. The best you're going to do is a 14 seed. Mm-hmm. It's hard to upset people. I don't know what else I can do, and I want to coach against the best. And I think I can go there and vault that on to something else, or I can go there and be happy." And he said, "Well, I'm telling you, that's the toughest job you're going. That's a hard job. I wouldn't do it."
You did pretty well. Would you win 28 games?
We won a lot of games. I don't know how to remember. I don't know, but thankful for Bill's self and staff,
he left you a good
players.
Team?
Yeah, I did. What I had to do was adjust the way he coached. And it was a lot of high-low action, which I was not familiar with. I was familiar with Coach Smith's stuff with secondary breaks, spacing out, and everything. So I had to figure out how you run this high-low, pound the ball inside, and the elbow, how you execute it with 3 guys outside, 2 inside. And I kept one of his staff members, and Bill and I call Bill all the time on my way home from practice, just trying to pick his brain about, I tried this today, I did this, what I need to do next, and everything. And we as coaches, as a fraternity, you walk.
Is that normal? Is that?
Because I mean, you're not going to call people in your conference.
Yeah.
But Bill and I had a relationship because we kind of came up together as assistants. He was at Oklahoma State, I was at Vanderbilt, NC State, so we knew each other. And, Bill was hoping that Norm Roberts, his assistant, would get the job. But, sometimes it doesn't work that way. But he was very, very helpful in the whole situation. So, we won an NIT championship. A lot of times the NIT is kind of a promotion for a coach. I was 36, 37 years old, and here we are. We're beating the likes of Minnesota, Mississippi State, Memphis, Alabama. And, of course, you're going to have job opportunities coming your way. So at that time, I just, when you're only hot probably once in your life, maybe twice, who knows, you better jump on it when you can. But at the same time, I'm thinking, I've got everybody back on this Tulsa team. This team can be very good. And so I'll never forget my mother-in-law said, "I sure like to get these grandbabies closer to me." And so that's when
Tennessee.
I took the Knoxville job. Yeah.
That was really trying for you, wasn't it? Because you always were so close, I feel like, to putting it all together.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're sitting there at Tulsa, and it's a great job. You have the Tennessee job in your hand. If Tubby, being in Kentucky, doesn't take the South Carolina job, you could have that job. You knew if you turned one of those jobs down, you could get the Wake Forest job. And so you got all these things going on in your mind, and you're trying to figure out what to do, and it gets more complicated. So I grew up a big Tennessee football fan. My dad went to school there. I had family from La Follette down to Athens. And I felt like that this would be a great opportunity. Jerry Green did a great job and went to 4 straight NCAA tournaments. But I took over a situation that was in pretty dire need. We had from anywhere from drug issues to academic issues. And, it was a tough 4 years trying to get that program back. And it happens a lot. A guy comes in, cleans it up, next guy wins. Mm-hmm. The guy does a pretty good job, he leaves, maybe the assistant gets it, or he gets in trouble, something happens, the next guy cleans up, the other guy wins. And that's what I went through there.
Because Bruce came after you at Tennessee.
Bruce came after me. I went through 5. I look back on it, I went through 5 university presidents in 4-year span of time.
I mean, there can't be a major job like that. Because
when the person or persons that hire you leave, your stick gets cut off a lot. It gets thinner and thinner in there. So, the AD left after 2 years. He retired, Doug Dickey, and it made it a lot tougher. And you had the starting backcourt. I lost. I had some academic issues inside with Hayslip and everything. So we just tried to put it together the best we could. And I felt like we were one more year away. And I told them, I said, if I don't get you in the tournament this next year in 5 years, then I'd make a change also. But but I'll be glad to stay here and help raise money for you because I love this university. I don't really want to leave it. You can put me in another position where you don't have to pay me my money all at once. I'll continue to work in some way. You can pay me that back. But they made that quick change after 4 years. And, of course, what happens next year? They go to NCAA tournament. And that's what happens a lot of times.
I think you're like me, because this happened in Wilmington too, right? Where things didn't go as well as maybe you would hope. But you're like me. I tie so much of who I am as a person in the work I do. And so when work isn't good sometimes, I get all tore up about it. And I'm sick. And I get down in the dumps. My wife's saying, "What's wrong with you?" I had a bad day at work. But for a coach, it's really trying. You live and die with every single decision.
And it affects your family.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part. When you have young kids and things are being said to them at their school, that gets tough. I mean, we had to pull Rob out of a freshman year in high school because kids who were just saying things that were not nice of his dad and everything, and so we had to pull him out of there. And then we had an incident when I lost, at Tennessee. Some kids are here that their dads are saying, and they carried that over to school a little bit, not meaning no harm really, but that's what affects you. You don't want to see your wife or children be affected by something happened at work, what you did and everything, and that's the tough part. And in coaching, your family's so involved with it. My wife played in college at Mars Hill, and your kids are all into it. And so when you come home, what do they want to know? They want to know what happened.
Yeah, what went wrong?
Yeah, what happened at practice?
That was a terrible call.
Yeah.
Why did that happen?
The game. I mean, talk about the game. You lost a close game. You don't want to talk about it. And I learned as my career went on, my managers, I'm a big Andy Griffin fan. I love Andy Griffin shows, and I have every one of them. And they knew on a bus or plane we were going to make sure I had 3 or 4 of those tapes in my DVD player. Because a lot of times I'm not going to go and watch that game immediately. I'm going to go something that's going to get me back home again, something that's going to make me relax, where I feel comfortable again, and nothing does it better than good old Andy Griffin shows.
So that the end of the Wilmington, so you finish at Wilmington, you get let go there. You literally got like hospitalized, right? You had some health issues, didn't you, for a little while?
It's interesting. It's kind of, I don't know what happened. It was hot, and we lived on a golf course there, and I'd been outside, and I came back in, and we had some steps coming in. I sat down, and my oldest daughter's sitting there. She said, "Dad, you all right?" I said, "Yeah, my head's a little light." And she says, "Well, you going to be okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. And so I probably got just heat exhaustion.
Yeah.
And so I sat there a little bit, and I drank some water, and I started dazing off. What she did, she calls my wife, who's with the other 2 kids and friends having a late lunch or something, and so they get all upset and everything. So they said, "Well, should we come home?" And Nicole says, "Yeah, I'm real worried about him because he looks red in the face. I'm real concerned." My son and convinces my wife to call 911.
Oh, no.
So to make the story a little shorter, I'm sitting there, and in the back you can look out to a green, and there's a grass, and there's a green on the golf course at Landfall. And I'm looking there, just sitting out watching a little bit of TV, and I'm fine. And I see this guy in a cart with a light coming straight across our grass, up to the deck, comes flying in the door, and the door is unlocked. And he says, "You okay, Mr. Peterson?" I said, "I'm fine. He says, "We got in a call from 911 that you wasn't feeling well, and I've got the ambulance on the way." Well, if you've ever been in a situation, so he wants to take my blood pressure. So now when the first responders come and they're, fire truck or whatever, they want to do the same thing. They ask the same question. Now all of a sudden, here comes the ambulance. They're going to do the same thing, ask all the questions. So I went through all that, and so they said, "Your blood pressure's high." I said, "Look."
You wonder why it's high? Oh, you get out of here.
Yeah. I said, "I always run high blood pressure anyway. And I've always been on the high side. That's just on my mom's side of family." And so the guy says, "Look, just to be cautious, let's take you in." And I said, "Guys, I'm fine. So let's just do it. We'll run some tests, and we'll get you out of there." Well, wouldn't you know, as they're taking me out of the stretcher, there's people playing golf.
Oh, no.
And one of the people playing golf is our golf coach. And so, because he's not going to yell anything, so what's he do? He gets on a phone and starts calling people, say, hey, I just saw the coach getting in the ambulance. It doesn't look good. I mean, they put him on a stretcher, and he's gone. And he's going off all this stuff, and so anyway, so it starts getting out. The rumor starts getting out, and there I am, and they get me in a hospital. And they park me right at the main entrance of the emergency room. So there I am as you walk. Anybody walks in the emergency room, there I am. My face, boom, right there. You're the coach at UNC Wilmington, which is a pretty big job down there. And so the rumor starts getting out. Aren't you coach? Aren't you coach? And then so, yes, it started getting out. So they finally removed me, put me in another room. But for that day, my wife was getting all kind of calls. Is Buzz going to be all right? Is he fine?
Just had some heat exhaustion. So drink some water.
Yes, so I had a stress test the next morning at 6:30. I was so determined to whip that thing. I was one.
Did you ace it?
I aced that. Yeah. I was ready to kill it.
Part one of our conversation with Hornets assistant general manager Buzz Peterson. In the books, I say part one because part two is going to come next Monday. We spent over an hour with Buzz, and so the second part of our conversation is going to be really Hornets related, talking about what it's been like to work alongside Mitch Kupchak, the things that this team is putting in place organizationally to try to push this team forward on the court and what that looks like both on the court and off the court. We'll talk about all the moves, whether it comes from the draft, free agency, and thoughts on this team after Summer League as we head towards training camp. So we'll get to all that with Buzz. Real good, hard look at the Hornets team. We'll do that next Monday. Of course, you can always find us on YouTube, our official Hornets YouTube channel. You can subscribe to all of our content there. Find us on Hornets.com, the Hornets app, Apple Podcast. Just search Courtside Seats. My name, Kroeger, as well, Kroeger. You could search Charlotte Hornets. Any of those keywords, you'll find us. Make sure you subscribe, and then also leave a review and rate us if you don't mind. That'll help us get the word out, and you guys can keep getting this great content. We'll talk to you next Monday. More with Buzz Peterson, talking Hornets basketball right here on Courtside Seats.